had a dream last night. Except, I think it's more than a dream. It was a dream within a dream, or better yet, a nightmare within a dream. I'm not sure if it meant anything, but it frightened me more than any other nightmare I've experienced. Both seemed real, especially the second. I'll start from the beginning. I jolted awake. The crash of thunder set off some car alarms in the parking lot of my one-bedroom Minneapolis apartment. I rubbed my eyes and glanced at the clock. 5:47 a.m. I wandered out into the living room to make a pot of coffee and start my day. Lightning flashed. Within half a second, boom, I jumped. It was one hell of a storm. April showers, that's an understatement, I thought, and laughed. It was my one day off between working 2 jobs and attending grad school full-time, but there was no way I would be able to go back to sleep. My heart was racing too much from the violent awakening. I turned on the coffee maker, then stopped cold. I was frozen in place with an overwhelming sense of dread washing over me like the rain from the storm. I could feel it trickle down my spine and drip from my shirt. Something was wrong. I felt imminent doom was upon me. I couldn't explain what triggered this feeling and at first chalked it up to another anxiety attack. With my hectic schedule, I was having them more frequently, especially after last semester's brutal midterms. But this one was different. I could feel it wasn't an imaginary fear. It felt more concrete, as if the figurative demons, as my church friends sometimes call them, manifested into something dangerous and all too real, and they were closing in on me, their target. I broke from my trance, and without thinking, I found myself rushing to my bedroom. I locked the door and braced myself against it with all my strength. I heard a loud thrashing on the other side of the door. I've never heard anyone come in. My complex was locked, as was my front door. With each thrust from my pursuer, the door gave way, the hinges creaking. I could also feel the wood breaking from behind my hands. I knew it wouldn't hold much longer. Panic-stricken, I started looking for an escape, my eyes fixed on the window overlooking the now drowning parking lot. I contemplated jumping. The 3 stories, dude. The hard concrete. Anything to get away from whoever was trying to break in. My rational mind got the better of me. The fall alone would kill me. If I managed to survive, I would wind up with a broken leg. How would I run then if he decided to come after me? I decided I would fight, stand my ground. It was my only chance. With one final crash, the door flew open, throwing me off balance, with my fists clenched and ready to start beating whoever came through the door and my feet scrambling to catch my fall. I faced my assailant for the first time. I expected at worst a large man, strong, maybe even slightly overweight. As I gazed in horror, I quickly realized that my expectation was wishful thinking. A man can be hurt, hindered, or even killed, but this? What came through that door, arms stretched out, appeared to be a woman. But it was a being much worse. Its skin was pale, dead, and barely clinging to her frame. Scraggly blonde hair covered her face, but gave way as I attempted to push her away, revealing 2 furious eyes. Pupils glazed over with a gray film. Her mouth was full of decayed brown teeth. She lunged forward again and managed to close her hands around my throat. We went to the floor. She straddled my helpless body as I frantically attempted to pry her icy, dead hands away, but no use. Her grip was too powerful. Everything went silent. She was silent. I saw flashes of lightning but heard no following thunder. I drifted out of consciousness and into my certain death. My last image was those rage-filled eyes. Why? What did I do? I jolted awake. The crash of thunder set off some car alarms in the parking lot of my one-bedroom Minneapolis apartment. I rubbed my eyes and glanced at the clock. 5:47 a.m. Only a dream, I thought as I stared at the ceiling. However, waking up in the exact same way at the exact same time left me a bit unnerved. It took some convincing to force myself out of bed and start my actual day. As I walked into the living room of my apartment, the room seemed brighter than in my dream, which comforted me. The rational part of my brain convinced me that the mind is capable of wonders beyond explaining. People experience déjà vu. have night terrors where they see someone in the room with them shortly before waking up, and even experience sleep paralysis, all of which are backed by one branch of science or another. I poured myself some coffee and situated myself on my lumpy brown love seat. I was determined to get my statistics assignment finished by the end of the day. Rainy days are always perfect for hammering out some homework. I glanced at the sliding door leading to my balcony as the rain pounded against the wood floor and streaked the glass. As I took a sip of my coffee, I heard an urgent banging on the door. I jumped, spilling hot coffee down my chin and onto my shirt. Damn it! I sat up and ran to the door, cutting through the kitchen to grab the towel hanging from the stove handle on the way. I peered through the peephole, but there was no one there. Confused, I opened the door and searched down both ends of the hallway. Again, no one was there. I listened for retreating footsteps, but the hallway was silent. I shook my head. I must be going crazy. I closed the door, making sure to latch the deadbolt. You're letting your dream get the best of you. Who do you think that was? Do you think it was her? I shuddered. Images from my dream started to rush back to me, but I blocked them out. I refused to let my mind wander there, even if it was just a dream. I made my way back to the couch. As I stepped on the carpet, a cold sensation on the sole of my foot sent shivers up my spine. There was a dark, wet spot on the carpet, almost like a footprint. The size was not much larger than my own foot. I scanned the rest of the carpet, only to see more wet spots, more footprints, leading from the balcony through the living room. I could hear the blood rush through my ears with every increasing heartbeat. Someone is in my apartment. I'm not imagining that. I fumbled for my phone to call the cops. The battery was at 1%. It didn't charge last night. I was in tears at this point. Please, God, no. The phone died as soon as I entered my passcode. A familiar sensation of paralysis took over me. I could feel myself being sucked into the floor. The room grew larger and I began to feel faint. A panic attack was setting in. I felt helpless. I wanted to run, but that feeling of dread from my dream washed over me yet again. I wanted to run. I needed to run. After a forced deep breath, I moved quietly towards the door. With one hand on the deadbolt and the other on the handle, I prepared myself to run. I drew in another wavering breath and counted. 1, 2, 3. I thrust the door open and made a break for the stairwell. I reached the bottom. I burst through the door leading to the parking garage. Panic hit me as I frantically felt my sweatshirt pockets for my car keys. They were there, thank God. I made it to my car and I immediately felt safer. I looked behind me and didn't see anyone. The only sound was that of my bare feet patting against the cement. I opened my car door, throwing myself into the driver's seat. I jammed the lock button twice to make sure I had heard it click. I let out a sigh and forced myself to calm down. My hands were shaking, my whole body was shaking, and I was on the verge of hysterical tears. I just needed to drive. To get to a phone, I cleared my mind and decided to drive to the gas station up the street. I turned on the car and put it into reverse. As I glanced up into my rearview mirror, I was met with glassy gray eyes and a grin full of brown, rotted teeth. I felt her cold touch yet again on the back of my neck. She leaned in closer to me as if to whisper something in my ear. I woke again before I could hear what it was she wanted me to hear. This was earlier this morning. I'm afraid to go back to sleep. I'm afraid to see her again. I hope this is just an overly bizarre nightmare and it ends here. But I fear it's something more.